Hours before the nationwide power cut, the Chancellor was at the national grid trying to convince people the lights are not fading on the British economy. But growth figures out today show the country is contracting for the first time in almost 7 years, sparking fears we might be heading for a recession. Chancellor, welcome to your first GDP results. Why are they so bad?
I don't think anyone will be surprised by today's results. There was a general expectation that this quarter would be weaker than the previous one.
Oh, but this is worse than people expected. We're going backwards. This is the worst set of results in almost 7 years, the worst manufacturing quarter since 2009. What's gone wrong?
Well, I think there was an expectation that they would be weaker. But please, let me finish on the fundamentals that we have more people employed today than at any time in our history. We have the lowest unemployment rate in 44 years. We have wages growing at their fastest rate in a decade. We have national debt falling, and that shows you that our economy is strong and resilient.
There seems to be a growing disconnect between the optimistic power language of the Chancellor and the stark realities of the data that's coming out. More and more, they reflect a weak and fragile British economy, seriously at risk of going into recession if we end up with a no-deal Brexit. The last time the UK was retracting at 0.2% was back in the teeth of the Eurozone crisis in 2012. But you have to go back even further until the global financial recession of 2009 to get a worse figure. In the details of today's report, you can see that one of the biggest drags on the economy was manufacturing, which suffered as car plants shut down during the quarter. You need 2 quarters of consecutive negative growth to have a technical recession, a prospect I put to the Chancellor. Do you accept, given today's results, that we're now staring down the barrel of a recession?
I don't accept that for a single second. I'm not expecting a recession. There is not a single leading forecaster out there that is expecting a recession. The Independent Bank of England is not expecting a recession. And you know why they're not? It's because the fundamentals are strong. That's the first thing. You know, our economy since 2010, because the hard work of the British people has grown by 19%.
Given today's results,
and we have more people employed than ever before.
Are you not updating your thinking, Chancellor? Given today's results, GDP has surprised on the downside. Do you not think it's reckless then to create another economic shock this autumn?
Well, the reason we are seeing volatility in numbers, a higher results in the first quarter, lower in the second quarter. The reason we're seeing this is because businesses are trying to work around Brexit, and there's too much uncertainty. And the way to end that uncertainty is to make sure that we leave as planned, which is October the 31st.
But now, you talk about businesses. Business investment is down 0.5% in the quarter. That's a dismal reading. We've been told by the Bank of England, you've been told by the OBR, that if we had a no-deal Brexit, then we risk the chance of an even more damaging shock to the economy. Mark Carney last week said the same thing, instantaneous shock. Chancellor, given today's weak economic results, are you really going to create another economic shock in this autumn?
You talked about business investment. You find me a single major economy that isn't seeing declining business investment, especially in Europe.
But our issues are much more homegrown than what's happening in Europe. Business investment in Blighty was going up around 5% a year for most of the decade. That changed with the referendum. Since then, it's struggled to grow at all, and today, figures show it's down 0.5%. We're now doing worse than Italy or France. Is this what people voted for?
Well, actually, you mentioned some other countries there. When you look at the growth forecast for the UK for this year, the IMF forecast that we will grow faster than Italy, than Germany, than Japan. They forecast we will grow at the same rate as France. And just this week, we've had results from other countries.
Backwards. At the moment, according to today's result, we're going backwards.
Well, I don't think you've got a new IMF forecast today. So the IMF forecast, which is looking at the picture of the whole year, is a forecast that says that we will grow faster than Germany, than Italy, than Japan.
Welcoming forecasts when they suit and shunning them when they don't is a political act of contortionism, especially when the hard data is in hand. And the data today shows us behind our European neighbours.
Some chicken.
While his boss, Boris Johnson, has been playing a long game of chicken with the IMF, who he's accused of being Brussels-loving Ramonas, just as they've warned him of the dangers of a cliff edge. It's been a hard day for the Chancellor. He's here in Nottinghamshire in a training site to talk up employment and investment. In his brief 2 weeks in the job, he's boasted about turbocharging the economy, higher pay, more policing. But the prospect of a recession puts the squeeze on his big spending plans. You're incredibly optimistic. You're talking about turbocharging our economy, but the facts remain the facts. Isn't Project Fear looking more like Project Reality?
I'm optimistic because our economic fundamentals are so strong. You know that when you have the lowest unemployment rate in 44 years, when you have wages growing at their fastest
So
rate
are we
in a decade,
done with growth? We don't need growth?
These are reasons to be optimistic about the future. And I will not have people, which we get too often in Parliament, just trying to talk down the British economy again and again because it suits their own political outlook.
It comes amid a messy political backdrop, given talk of an election on the 1st of November. You're the Chancellor. You've got his ear. Will Boris Johnson call an election if there's a vote of no confidence, with a recession possibly looming?
The next election, as far as I'm concerned, is planned for 2022. And I'm going to work incredibly hard towards that next election, and I'm going to make sure that we do everything we can to win it whenever it comes.
Of course, you don't always get what you want. The uncomfortable realities of the economy, today matched by the unfortunate blackout of swathes of the national grid, causing chaos up and down the country, just as the Chancellor was there to talk up Britain's bright future.
Well, we invited the Labour Party to send a member of their front bench to talk to us tonight on the programme, but no one was available. With me now is the Labour MP Wes Streeting, who is on the Parliamentary Treasury Committee. So the Chancellor says he does not expect a recession, which is 2 quarters of growth. We've only got 1. Do you?
Well, I think look at what City analysts said today, which is that the country is teetering on the brink of a recession. And look, the Bank of England forecast was for flatlining growth over the course of the second quarter this year. We're actually seeing the economy shrinking over the course of this quarter. And it's not just the headline growth figures we should be worried about. When you look at every major sector of our economy, services, construction, manufacturing, they are all struggling. And what was extraordinary listening to the Chancellor speaking just then is that the no deal that he is currently planning for, the no deal that his government is apparently aiming towards, will not make that situation any better. In fact, it will make it catastrophically worse. But
the suggestion is from the government that this is actually all about the Brexit that never was. That in the first quarter of this year, people stockpiled, expecting the possibility of a no-deal Brexit. They've wound those stockpiles down in the second quarter, so they haven't been buying, and that's why GDP fell off. Is that not credible? Because if it is, then we'll expect more panic buying or stockpiling in the next quarter and things will go back up.
But let's just pause for a moment and reflect on what's so extraordinary about that admission. The government admits, by its own admission, in the first quarter of this year, the reason why we saw economic growth wasn't because we have a sound economy that's being well managed by the government, but because businesses were panic buying in anticipation of a no deal. It seems to me the whole government's economic plan is now based on panic buying in the next quarter for the prospect of a genuine no deal at the end of October.
But my point is that he is right when he says, actually, people aren't forecasting a recession, even with no deal possibly on the table. But even the Bank of England says there's only a 1 in 3 chance of a recession next year.
1 in 3 sounds actually far too uncomfortably high as the first thing. There's the second thing is, let's just bear in mind that this isn't forecasts we're looking at today. These are real numbers, the real performance of the British economy, real jobs, real livelihoods, which are being put at risk by the government threatening and apparently pursuing a no-deal Brexit for which Boris Johnson has no mandate from the British people.
Well, on that front, I mean, you're not absolutely in tune with Jeremy Corbyn on Brexit, I know, but, I mean, do you think he should engage with the idea of a sort of a unity government, possibly led by somebody else, whether it's Yvette Cooper or Ken Clarke, or somebody that Tories, Liberal Democrats, SNP and Labour MPs can get behind in order to stop a no-deal Brexit at the end of October?
Well, I think one thing that we all agree on in the Labour Party is our first priority has got to be stopping a catastrophic no-deal. The question is, how do we do that? It's not unreasonable for Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the opposition to expect that if the government loses a no-confidence vote in September, which it very well might over no deal, that he as leader of the opposition would be given the first opportunity to form a government.
And would you say people should get behind him?
I think we should get behind, yes, certainly, because I think we've got to have a government that's committed to stopping no deal. The reality, though, Christian, in order to do that, we would have to have Conservative MPs backing a Labour government led by Jeremy Corbyn. The chance of that happening are very unlikely. Even the biggest optimist, and I'm usually an optimist, is very unlikely. I think if we have to have a government of national unity for a limited period of time, for the sole purpose of stopping no deal, that is a price worth paying to safeguard people's jobs and people's livelihoods, which it used to be the priority of any government, that they put jobs, livelihoods and the economy first. What we've heard from Sajid Javid today is just the most extraordinary performance I can think of from any Chancellor, actively preparing for a no-deal Brexit that he knows, and I know, would harm the jobs and livelihoods of every family in this country.
Wes Streeting, thank you very much for coming in.